The focus of this month's episode is the importance of the Classic Bred Lizard Canary, its pedigree and the influence of outside factors that can negatively impact the quality and integrity of a Classic Bred Lizard Canary stud if pedigree isn't understood. The first point to clarify is what is a Classic Lizard Canary. For this, I'm going to quote the words of David Allen from one of his articles earlier this year in Cage and Aviary Birds. David, if you don't know, is well known as a successful breeder of Classic Lizard Canaries and a highly sought after judge, and David also keeps blue lizards. David commented in his article, "In 2025 I will use classic pairs, meaning pairs that have none of my blues in their pedigree. To further clarify, a Classic Lizard Canary is one that has no other variety, mutation, etc. in its pedigree. The birds have only been bred from gold and silver lizards that are purebred." So, this is not only crucial to maintaining a successful Classic Lizard Canary stud, but it's also crucial to preserving a breed of canary with more than 300 years of history that was almost extinct after World War II. Furthermore, that is why the focus of this channel is the Classic Lizard Canary and will continue to be so. I also want to point out that the Lizard Canary Association is the custodian of the Classic Lizard Canary and that it is its primary focus. Also, the Blue Lizard, as it's known, is catered for by the Blue Lizard Canary Club, and thankfully as the years have gone by, a number of mutually beneficial activities have benefited both parties, such as the Blue Lizard Canary Club issuing rings for its members to use on the normals that they breed from blues, and the support the LCA received from the Blue Lizard Canary Club when the LCA campaigned for COM to adopt an improved show standard for the Lizard Canary. These are just a couple of points that stand out. In a nutshell, both associations are responsible for their aims and clearly coexist. In further discussion with David Allen, David highlighted the importance of Classic Bred Lizard Canaries who are also beneficial to anyone that breeds blues, as the most common pairing is gold to blue. These pairings will also produce what look like normal lizard canaries, and those normals would need to be paired to a blue to breed blues. A point I want to raise here is that since coming back into the hobby, I have witnessed the results of continuous use of these birds that look like normal lizards when they are used as if they are classic bred, when they clearly are not. I've seen situations where novices have acquired what they believe to be classic lizard canaries from auctions, bird sales and breeders, and upon further investigation have found they are bred from other colours, let's say. As a result, then, pairing for the future generations, they've seen a deterioration in quality, and also some faults have been witnessed, such as poor ground colour, white feathers in the wings and tails, pink legs and white toenails, and most recently I've seen numerous cases where as much as 1/3 of the body of the bird have no dark feathers at all. Remember, the lizard canary is a dark self bird, not a 3 parts dark or 75% dark or variegated bird. If you compare a blue lizard with a classic lizard canary, the latter will have much richer ground colour. Newcomers need to be aware that colour feeding can mask the difference, but the classic lizards will have an orange-red colour, remember the standard colours for deep chestnut, while in blue lizards it's more of a pinky red because their foundation colour is paler. Remember, it's a white ground bird. I would also want to reiterate David's statement that he uses Blue Lizard Canary Club rings to distinguish his blues and the blue breds from his classic lizards, and his classic lizard canaries are colour fed and have IOA rings. This is an excellent example of how a breeder takes responsibility and acts as a responsible breeder to enable the customers to make an informed decision about the birds they are buying. I've had personal experiences as well. So when I re-entered the hobby some 5 years ago, having already obtained some classic bred stock, unfortunately I'd lost a couple of birds during the winter months and I needed some replacements for the breeding season. At the time, a breeder very kindly helped me out. It was a breeder that focuses on blue lizards, and I purchased a couple of normal lizards, knowing that they've been bred from his blue stock. Again, I'm not criticising the breeder. He was very open and very clear, and to all intents and purposes I was reasonably happy with what I brought away at the time. As such, when I got the birds back and then compared them to the classic bred birds, you could see a clear difference. However, I continued to breed with the birds, and as a result was fairly disappointed with what actually came off the birds in the end. One example is a picture here of a non-capped gold, and as you can see, a yellow patch is effectively developed on the lower part of the chest, and this clearly is a fault for a bird that clearly has to be a self-coloured bird. Needless to say, any birds that I bred and those birds that I bought in were moved on to a local pet shop, or to a friend of mine actually, who just keeps birds in a flight and occasionally uses birds for feeders. So the key thing was I wanted to make sure those birds never entered the gene pool of anybody wanting to breed classic lizard canaries. So that was a personal experience, and I kind of learnt the hard way. Again, not criticising the person I got the birds off. I bought the birds willingly, and then found out the hard way. But unfortunately, that also is what happens to newcomers in the hobby as well, which is why I wanted to stress it on this particular episode, particularly as we're entering that time of the year where the shows start, the auctions are active, the bird sales are active, adverts in the newspapers, etc. So just expressing the need to be cautious. If it's the classic bred lizard, you obviously want to focus on. Obviously, if you want to do other things, it's entirely up to you, and I want to stress that it's a personal choice. I'm not here preaching, I'm not here trying to ward people off, tell them not to experiment and do what they want to do. It's your choice. But my focus of the channel is the classic bred lizard canary, and I want to stress that if that's really where your focus is, then that's where you really do need to be cautious and make sure you're buying the right stock in the first place, to avoid being disappointed and to avoid some of the faults that you can experience if you acquire the wrong birds effectively. So with that, I just want to wrap up there. Like I said, I don't want it to be a bashing episode. It's clearly not meant to be, and I apologise sincerely to anybody if they feel differently. I've tried really, really hard with the way I've phrased the wording in this episode to make it clear that I'm not against what anybody else does. Like I said, my focus is the classic lizard canary, and my plan is that will remain the case for as long as I'm keeping birds. So in the meantime, I wish everybody a good summer, and I wish you all a good show season. I look forward to seeing many of you in the not too distant future. Thank you and goodbye.